Nigel Taberner, or Nige. Fascinating discussion. Really, really enjoyed it. The time went by very quickly. Nige is a hostage negotiator. I wonder what you think when you hear that. When you hear hostage negotiator, what do you think? What do you think is the definition of negotiation? One of the first questions I asked him. Would you be shocked to hear that the main ingredient is listening? I always think that I generally have more questions than I have answers. I find that as I get older, but just negotiating would be, trying to manipulate like we see in the movies. But Nige kind of lays it out there and describes. He's had many negotiations, over 130, I believe. He's now retired, and I'm not sure if you remember the show T.J. Hooker in the 80s. I don't know what age range you are, but how did that possibly have an effect, on Nige, the show T.J. Hooker with William Shatner in the 80s. Great conversation with Nige. Really, really enjoyed it. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because I was working way too much. Before you know it, I found myself 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. Took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People think there's some secret. Ask me, how'd you lose that weight? Like there's some secret. There is no secret. How'd I lose the weight? Just one word: discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends, colleagues convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission: how do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision: growth through learning from others. Appreciate your time. How has the 80s American cop show T.J. Hooker influenced you?
Oh, grief. It was, I was, when I'd been in my early teens when T.J. Hooker started. And I just loved it. It was the excitement of it. And just the characters that were in it as well. Where have you got that snippet of information from?
William Shatner was in there. Heather Locklear.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I always thought me and Heather would get it together.
Yes, me too. She doesn't respond to my replies. I don't know why. But,
oh, no. I think the restraining order might have something to do with that, Joey.
But it was early 80s. It was a cop show. It was in Los Angeles, I believe.
Yeah.
Correct? Yes.
Yeah. And it was good. It was kind of, there were interesting little storylines to it. It wasn't all sort of fast cars and stuff like that. And I just like the characters. So it was actually that combined with kind of a UK version of it, which was more based in a rural area. It was called Juliet Bravo, and it was based in a sort of northwestern town. It was very traditional. It wasn't exactly high octane, and it was the combination of the two that, as a young kid, just kind of made me really think that was what I wanted to do. So yeah, rather bizarre. And to be honest, it's always a bit of a standing joke when I do keynotes at conferences. Now, one of my slides has actually got a slide of T.J. Hooker on it.
Now, you and I were born around the same time. Some of the young people may not get the reference.
No, I mean, yeah, you have to be of a certain age
Right.
to remember. And just for reference, it is Sergeant T.J. Hooker to you, not T.J. Hooker.
Good point. That's right. He didn't like that. Yeah.
But yeah, it's you do have to be of a certain age. It'd go down like a lead balloon now. People just wouldn't get it. It wouldn't be exciting enough. But back in the day, it was good. Well, it was Friday night viewing in the UK.
That's right.
You watched it, and it wasn't like kind of it is now. You had to wait a week before you could watch the next episode.
In this fast-paced MSP landscape, how do you stay ahead? Introducing MSPinfluencer.com, your ultimate hub for MSP news, insights, and community connection, powered by Forza Dash. More than 75,000 MSPs subscribe to our MSP Influencer Pulse weekly newsletter, staying informed and ahead of industry trends. Tune Tune in to emerging podcasts from Joey Pinz and leading MSP voices, offering essential tips, powerful insights, and success stories. Explore our multi-authored blogs, crafted specifically for MSP leaders, delivering fresh perspectives and actionable strategies. Celebrate excellence with the industry-leading Forza-MSP Influencer Awards, recognizing innovation, leadership, and impact in the MSP community. Join thousands of MSP professionals who trust MSPinfluencer.com to grow their business and expand their networks. MSPinfluencer.com, where today's MSP leaders connect, collaborate, and conquer, all powered by the Forza platform, helping MSP vendors work effectively with MSPs and helping MSPs grow.
And that just
Very
added to
different
the
times.
excitement of it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I can't wait till Friday night to see the new episode. Yeah, very different.
Yeah,
Very different.
Absolutely. No streaming a box set of an
No.
evening or watching the whole thing on YouTube in about 3 days, you know?
Yeah. Different times. So this was the foray for you to get into policing.
Yeah. Yeah, so from being, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old, it was all I ever wanted to do.
Wow.
I never wanted to be anything else. And yeah, I just had that fire in my belly to join the cops. I mean, I joined the police for 2 reasons. I wanted to fight crime at the highest level, and I wanted to protect vulnerable people. And those were my drivers. That was what got me up in the morning. And you know, and that was what I wanted to do. But I was your typical teenage boy. I switched on about 6 months before my exams, way too late, no discipline whatsoever, no interest in school, completely blew me exams. So instead of going to college and university, joining as a graduate and whipping through the ranks, aged 16, I was working in a bus building factory in a small northwestern town called Wigan. You know, lying underneath bus chassis in tea bags, half-eaten sandwiches, and wood shavings. You know, I wasn't exactly living the dream. It wasn't where I wanted to go, but I never lost that ambition to join the police. I went to night school and resat up quite a few of my exams, and then I hit the golden age of 21, which was the age at which the police recruited in the UK at the time. So I walked out the bus building factory, put my application in, and the rest, you know, is history. A 30-year career with the Greater Manchester Police, in a wide variety of operational, counter-terrorism training roles, and yeah, I suppose the icing on the cake for me, and the thing that made it all worthwhile, was the time that I spent as a hostage negotiator. I loved it. It fulfilled me.
Define negotiation, Nigel.
Negotiation is a conversation with a purpose. It's a purposeful conversation.
Are we negotiating?
No, we're in the start of that process. We're trying to establish some kind of rapport. Yes. We kind of know each other a little bit, but we're kind of feeling each other out a little bit. We're trying to establish rapport. And negotiation, you get somebody to like you. We establish rapport. We get them to like us. We get them to trust us. At that point, you've earned the right to be able to influence somebody. But yeah, don't have negotiations with people. If you've got kids, don't negotiate with your kids. You'll only lose. If you know, don't negotiate with your bosses and stuff like that. Have meaningful conversations. That is all a negotiation is: a conversation with a purpose, and it's got a lot of structure to it.
Right, structure and trust. You got to establish trust.
Trust is the absolute bedrock of any negotiation. You know, without trust, there's nothing. If I can get you to like me, you're probably likely to trust me. If you trust me, then I'm going to be able to influence you. If you don't like me, you're never going to trust me. And if you don't trust me, you are never going to allow me to influence you. So trust is absolutely key. I heard a great quote about trust. It's a couple of months ago now. It said that trust arrives on foot, but it leaves on horseback. It can take a long, long time getting somebody to actually trust you. But if you blow it, it's gone. And the chances of getting it back are pretty slim. So we, as negotiators, we fight tooth and nail to get people to trust us. And we will never do anything to breach that. That's why hostage negotiators never tell lies.
Right, you can't lie.
No matter how much it hurts me, no matter how much I get burnt in the short term, I'm always going to tell the truth
Mm.
because I need that person to trust me. And once I've got that trust, I'm going to guard it jealously.
So if they say, "Am I going to go to jail?" What do you say if you're negotiating?
Do you know what? In my experience, you probably are going to go to jail. But you know,
Mm.
that's a long way down the line. Before we get there, yeah, you're going to get arrested. You're going to go to a police station. You're going to get your opportunities to say what's happened. You're going to have legal representation. You're probably going to get bailed for 6 months while they do further inquiries. Then you'll
Mm.
have to go back. Who knows? Who knows whether you're going to get charged or not? If you get charged, you go to court. Courts are fickle places. Who knows if you're
Mm.
going to get
Mm.
convicted? Going to
Mm.
jail is a long way down the line. It's a possibility. I'm not going to mislead you, but it's not a definite.
Mm.
And what's the
What
point in
kind of
lying to somebody? What's the point in
right?
lying to somebody? If
Because it
somebody's put a bullet in somebody, in
right,
probability they're going to go to jail. So so
right.
so so why not just be honest about it? Be upfront
Mm.
and say, do you know what? Things have changed. Things are going to change. But what we need to work through is what that is going to look like for you.
Mm.
Because it's not the end of the world. We need to look beyond it. We need to help people to reframe things.
Hmm.
Things look dark, it's absolutely grim, but you know what? Let's see if we can reframe that. Let's see if we can make it look different. Because ultimately, you're going to get through this. The future is going to be, different. But you've still got a future.
Hmm. And there's certain benefit to being strangers because you have a blank slate. Whereas you said don't negotiate with your kids. You know your kids all their lives, and it's very different because they could bring something up. But when you're going into the situation, it is a clean slate. So describe a scenario, Nige. So the police are involved, and they need a negotiator, and they like describe a common typical scenario.
Yeah, so it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm on call. The phone goes. Hi, Nigel. We've got an incident somewhere not just north of Manchester. We've got a man barricaded into a house. He's got three hostages. He's got his former partner, a 3-year-old boy, and a baby in arms. The baby's got a head injury. He's been seen at the back window with a gun. He's been pointing it to her head. Police officers have attended and tried to speak to him. He's come out of the house, chased them off down the road. He's now gone back inside the address. There's a lot of crashing and banging going on in there, and there's a strong smell of gas. They
Mm,
think he may have ruptured the gas mains.
mm,
Could you go up and have a chat with him?
hmm,
And that would be the sort of incidents that we would be deployed to. You'd be going to this job. I'd be getting spun down the motorway system in the UK at speeds well in excess of 150 miles an hour. And I'll be trying to
wow.
work out what's the negotiation strategy? What is it that I want to achieve? What's my opening line going to be? So I'm working out what I'm going to say. I'm practicing it. So I know not just what I'm going to say, but I know what I'm going to sound like.
Mm,
I'm thinking, what information have I got? What information do I actually need? Where are the gaps in the intelligence that I need to be able to deploy effectively? How on earth, when I get to this job, am I going to be the best version of me
mm,
to negotiate with this guy? How am I going to influence this guy? So there's loads of stuff going on in the background. I'm trying to work out who do I need to be because who I need to be to influence you can be completely different
mm,
to who I need to be to influence somebody else. But you're right. I mean, you talked about it being easy to negotiate with people that you don't know. I actually wanted to know as little as possible. I didn't want to
mm,
know anything about them. I used to arrive at a job and the scene commander would say to me, "Right, Nigel, what do you need to know?" And I'd say, "Just give me his name, John." Right, okay, that's brilliant. Are you sure that you don't need to know anything else? No.
hmm,
I'm in there. At that point, I'm having a conversation with John. It's dead easy. It's two guys having a conversation. Why make it more complicated than it needs to be? If I can
mm,
ignore the fact that he's waving a gun around, it's a conversation between two guys. It's easy. If I rock up there and the scene commander says to me, "Oh, thank goodness you're here, Nige. We've got this guy in the house. Our detectives went round to arrest him this morning for multiple rapes, and he's climbed up onto the roof."
mm,
I'm now not dealing with John.
hmm,
I'm dealing with John the rapist,
mm,
and we don't have an awful lot in common.
Mm.
So sometimes you can know too much about people, and sometimes it's better just going in with that clean slate that you talk about, where there's no emotion involved. We don't know each other. We're feeling each other out. And I've just got to go in there and go, okay, who do I need to be?
Hmm.
What version of me do I need to be able to influence John? And then we're just into a conversation. Being a
Mm.
hostage negotiator is not actually difficult. It's not difficult if you can get your head around a couple of key concepts, because all I've got to do is get somebody talking and keep them talking and listen like a life depends on it. It's no more complex than that. If I can get you talking and keep you talking, you will tell me things that you never intended. And
Mm.
all the time as a negotiator, I'm thinking, what did he say? What did he mean?
Hmm.
How can I use it to get him to change his behavior and do whatever it is that I want him to do? This nonsense about you being able to control what comes out your mouth, you can't.
Mm.
If I give you
Mm.
enough room in the conversation, you'll fill it. You're doing it with me now. You're doing it with me now. I will have come into this podcast thinking, you know, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about that. That's off the table. But
Hmm.
if you can get me talking and keep me talking, it'll leak. It'll come out, because that's just what we do, and that's how we get the edge as negotiators. If I'm talking more than 20% of the time, I'm talking too much. Because if
Mm.
I'm talking, I'm learning nothing. If you're talking, I'm learning stuff, and I'm going to be able to use that. You're going to tell me everything that I need to know
Mm.
to influence you. If I can get you going for long enough, all the stuff, your values and beliefs, what's important to you, what your currency is, you'll give me all of that, and then I'll use it to get you to do things differently. That
Hmm.
is the art of negotiation. But it comes down to good listening. And that's where the wheel starts to come off, because we're not good listeners. You know, we're not taught how to listen. Listening is not valued as much as being able um, to talk and to do that kind of front loaded stuff. You can always tell when somebody's not listening, because they'll say to you, "Go on, I'm listening."
Mm.
If somebody has to tell you that you're listening, or if you have to tell somebody that you're listening to them, it's because you're probably not. But listening is the hostage negotiator's superpower. It's what makes them different.
Hmm.
The number of times I went to an incident, and I inexplicably, after 40 minutes, 50 minutes, somebody would turn around to me and say, "Can I put the knife down now? Can I come down now? Can we finish this now?"
Hmm.
And I'd say, "Yeah, sure, come on." And as we're walking back to a police car or an ambulance or whatever it is, I'd say to them, "If you don't mind me asking, why? Why did you change your mind?" Because I've done nothing.
Mm.
And the number of times they would say to me, "Because nobody has ever listened to me like that before," really tells us a lot about how, as a society, we listen to each other. But that is how we get the edge as negotiators. Give them room in the conversation, get them talking, keep them talking. They will tell you everything that you need to
Hmm.
know. We just miss out on it because we half listen, and that's the difference.
Big difference between listening and waiting to talk. So
Oh,
when you're talking to I would think there's a certain advantage of the police, whoever there, giving you too much information, because I would think when you get on the phone with John, you'd say, "John, they just told me that you're in there and it's a dangerous thing. I don't know anything else. Tell me what's happening." I think that would be an actual advantage.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Sometimes you know too much, so you go in and
Right.
pretend you don't know stuff. So
Mm.
so so you pretend you don't know all this stuff. They start telling you, and then half an hour later, it comes out that you knew all along,
Mm.
and you just look disingenuous.
Right.
Disingenuous. You don't look honest. You're not being straight with people. So sometimes the first thing I do when I went in would if I knew stuff, I'd summarize it. Look,
Mm.
John, this is what I've been told has happened. And I would summarize it, put everything on the table. Otherwise, if I didn't know it, I'd just walk in and go, "John, I can't even begin to imagine what's happened to make you do this today. Tell me about it."
Mm.
And then poof, the doors open. Once you've got them talking, especially if they're emotional, all bets are off. If somebody's emotional, boom, the floodgates will open. They will spill their guts and they'll tell you everything, because they've got something they want to get off the chest, and the filter's gone. They've not got the filters on. and they'll tell you everything.
Hmm.
So yeah, sometimes it's good not to know that stuff.
So are you in the car? Do you have the phone in your ear? Are you writing notes to paint a picture of what's happening?
Yeah, so a lot of the time I want to get face to face.
Hmm.
So a face to face negotiation for me is always still a lot easier because when
Hmm.
you're staring, when you're looking at somebody in the face,
Right.
it's easier to connect.
Big difference. Yeah.
It's different on the phone. You have to work a lot harder to kind of establish that rapport. It's a lot more difficult. Don't get me wrong. From a practical perspective, it's a lot easier. You can have a lot more support around you when you're on the phone.
Hmm.
You can be sat in a police station, you can be sat in a squad car, whatever it is, with people around you, with pieces of paper around you, people passing you notes and stuff like that. You can have that
Hmm.
support around you. So it's got its advantages. But ideally, if it's safe to do so, I want to get face to face. I want to look them in the eye and say to them, look, do you know what? It doesn't have to be like this. Things can be different. Let's talk about it. And it's just so much easier to come across. But I mean, I've negotiated with people face to face, on the telephone, by text, over Zoom and Teams, and stuff like that.
Hmm.
All have got their advantages. A lot of them have got the kind of drawbacks as well. Trying to negotiate on WhatsApp is a
Ha.
nightmare.
Right.
It's really tough because you lose that personal touch.
The text. Yeah. What kind of verbal cues do you? I mean, if you come up to the house, let's use this scenario: 3 o'clock in the morning with John, and you see that they have a Manchester United flag in their, in the front. I mean, do you use those kind of, or some kind of other signs that you can kind of make some commonality with? Is that common as well?
Yeah, so right from the get go, right from the start, I am looking for something that connects us.
Mm, mm,
I'm trying to get them talking about themselves, and then I'm looking for something that connects us. And yeah, do you know what? It might be a football team. It might be a
mm,
sport that they play. It might be family. It could be
hmm.
it could be absolutely
Garden.
anything. But if
Mm,
it works really well, even if you're dealing with an absolute rotter,
mm,
if you find something that connects you, that can really break barriers down. I remember negotiating with a young lad. He was up at height. We were getting absolutely nowhere with him, and he said to me, he said, I want you to get me mate on the phone. And I said, oh, what's your mate name? Mario. And he wouldn't tell me anything other than it's Mario. And he said, look, my mum's downstairs in the car, go and get his details. So I went down and spoke to his mum, and I said, he wants to speak to Mario. Who's Mario? She said, oh, it's Mario Balotelli, the City football player at the time.
yes.
And I thought you might like that as a City fan. And this young lad had played with Balotelli in
You're
the
kidding
reserve
me.
sides. No, and I just went back up and I just said to him, I said, who on earth am I talking to? I said, how did you know Mario Balotelli? And he started telling me, and I said, okay, so given that you know Mario, I said, how likely do you think I am to introduce a guy who is just bananas? Do you think I'm going to introduce him into a scenario like this?
Wow.
Because he was properly, I mean, Balotelli was properly wired, wasn't he? He was kind of, he played on the edge, and this guy
Yes.
started laughing, and I know as soon as I've got him laughing, that's it.
Mm,
We were back down. The pair of us were back down within 5 minutes.
mm,
Because we connected. We found something that connected us. So
hmm.
yeah, I'm looking for that all the time. It can't be contrived. It can't be,
Right.
I like United. Who do you follow? And this, that, and the other.
Oh yeah.
It's I'm not going to play that game. It's got to come naturally.
Mm, mm,
You know,
mm.
I spoke to people, and really unusual things have come out. We've both been on holiday to the same location. When was
Huh.
that? No, now we're talking about something different. Now we're connecting. Now we're establishing rapport. Now he's seeing me not just as a hostage negotiator. He's seeing me as a person, or he's seeing
Mm,
me. He's seeing me as a dad. He's seeing me as a cyclist. Whatever it is. I mean, that's the sort of branding I'm looking for. I mean, I
mm.
deployed to about 130 incidents in a 10-year period.
Wow.
Um, Thankfully, never lost anybody. Never once in 130 incidents did I ever refer to myself as being a police officer.
Hmm.
Never did I ever say, as cool as it may have sounded, hi, my name's Nigel and I'm a hostage negotiator. Never.
Mm.
It's not the
Mm-mm.
brand, it's not the personal branding
Right.
that I was looking for. The nearest I would come would be, hi, my name's Nigel, I'm here with the police.
Mm.
It's not rocket science. I've got past three armed cordons and I'm stood in your back garden. And I've got a shield in front of me that's got police written on it. But I'm never going to admit it because that's not the branding I'm looking for. I'm Nigel. I'm an ordinary guy.
Mm.
That's who you need to be. Sometimes you need to dial that warmth up and down. Sometimes you might have to be a little bit more kind of official. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I never actually negotiated with a terrorist in a terrorist situation. But if I did, when I introduced myself, I wouldn't be Nigel. I wouldn't be Nigel, the police officer. I wouldn't even be Nigel, a hostage negotiator.
Mm.
In that situation, I'm Nigel, the hostage negotiator,
Hmm.
because that is the branding that I will be looking for. Who do I need to be? Which version of me do I need to be to influence this individual?
In this day and age of social media, I mean, you could get a lot of information. I know you're an
Mm.
80s music fan, Tears for Fears, Duran Duran. I mean, just knowing that kind of inside stuff could help as well. But you really don't want to do. Are they doing that now? I wonder. Has social media technology helped hurt this industry of negotiation, hostage negotiation?
I think that in the background it probably would. Actually, in terms of what the negotiator is, because there's no such thing as the hostage negotiator.
Mm.
We never deploy on our own. You've always got support around you. But as the person who is doing the speaking, you're not told everything. They
Mm.
will hold stuff back. Because if I'm negotiating with you, you want to think that we're having a genuine conversation.
Mm.
And if I
Mm.
turn around to you and said, "Yeah, I believe you like Dire Straits," and you'd be going, "Well, who's told you that?"
Right.
And also, what else have they told you about me? What do you know?
Mm.
Have you been doing my social media?
Ah.
I want to have a conversation about you, and then I'll kind of bring music into it. You mentioned Dire Straits, and I go, "Oh wow, brilliant! That's amazing." I saw them in Wembley in '89. What a great band! And then we're away. That is how we use it. It's got to be a genuine conversation. That kind of
Mm.
negotiation has got to be a genuine, open conversation. It's not contrived, and you don't want to think that actually this negotiator here, it's been why he's talking to me. He's half listening to me, and he's listening to people feeding him lines.
Mm.
It's got to be genuine, and that's what makes difference. So negotiation it's an art, not a science.
Hmm.
Um, but there's a lot of structure to it.
Right.
There's a lot of structure and there's a lot of discipline involved. When I turn up, I have got to be the best version of me. I've got to be on form. I've got to be able to walk up, and I've got to have the confidence of knowing what I'm going to say, what I'm going to sound like, and knowing that actually, do you know what? I've got the skills to be able to get you to do things differently. I can get you to put the gun down. I can get you to put the knife down. I can get you to come down off the ledge, whatever it is, because I've trained, because I'm disciplined,
Hmm.
because I know the system that I'm working within. And yes, whilst it is an art form, there's a definite process that I
Mhm.
am pushing you through in order to have earned the right to be able to influence you.
Nigel, I heard you describe your first time doing it, and you were very fresh on the job. And the attitude there is let the new people go first,
Yeah.
because that way, if it fails, they can graduate to the more. I mean, but that must have been something getting pushed into that.
Oh, grief! It was horrific. I remember the first incident that I went to. It was a man inside a house. It was barricaded. He'd got a gun. He'd got a baby in there. He'd poured
Mm.
petrol around the ground floor, and he was
Mm,
threatening to set the place on fire.
mm,
So I got a phone call saying, "Will you deploy to this?" It was my first job. I think I'd completed the negotiators course 2 weeks before. So plenty of experience in simulations and role plays and that kind of thing, but no
mm,
operational experience. I remember getting in the car and I was driving to it, and the other negotiator who was going to be deploying with me called me. He'd been negotiating for over 10 years. He was a high ranking officer. He taught on the negotiators course. He was good. And he said to me, "Do you want to take the lead on this?" And everything in me at the time wanted to say, "No, it's all right, mate. I'll tell you what, you take the lead on this, and I'll watch you."
mm.
But I just heard myself say, "Well, yeah, of course I will."
Wow.
It was like an out of body experience. Yeah, of course I will. Yeah. So we got there, and I deployed. But we actually do that for a very specific reason, because if the really the negotiator who was kind of really experienced had said, "Do you know what, Nigel, I'm going to take the lead on this. You're my number two," and he got himself into difficulty. He got himself tongue tied, didn't know what to say. What help can I offer him? I have no
Mm,
experience other than what the latest thinking might be. I've got nothing. Whereas if I deploy and I get myself in difficulty, I've got 15 years experience and probably 60 to 70 incidents that he's been to, stood behind me and able to help me and guide me. So that's
mm.
why we always put the least experienced negotiator in the key role of speaking,
Wow.
because they've got that support behind them. It seems really counterintuitive, but it has worked, and proved dividends time and time again.
You mentioned I want to go back to this, Nigel, on the lying thing. You don't lie, but I mean, what if the person says, I've got these bills, they're going to close my electricity, I have, a mortgage, and my wife is upset with me, and that at work they don't respect me. I mean, do you actually, I know exactly what you mean. I'm dealing with the same thing. Do you kind of level set with that, or do you just say, oh, that's terrible, tell me more? I mean, what do you do at that
Yeah.
point?
So that's really interesting. My standard line in that would be, "Oh, grief, I can't even begin to imagine that. What that must be
Uh,
like for you.
mm,
Just tell me about it."
mm,
And then we would explore the situation. We would explore options. What options are available. Very often we fall into the trap of problem solving way too early.
mm,
We think that because we've been through similar circumstances, that we know how they feel,
hmm,
and that we know what the solution is for them because it worked for us.
hmm,
And that never works. That doesn't work. Okay, my experience is great. Being able to speak from experience is great. But jumping in, prematurely problem solving, sometimes before we even know what the issues are for them, is never going to work. It doesn't matter if you've been through strikingly similar circumstances. So if I'm going through a terrible, terrible situation, even if you've been through strikingly similar circumstances, you have no idea what it's like for me.
mm,
All you know is what it was like for you and how you were able to resolve it.
mm,
This nonsense about, I mean, I don't know if you have a similar saying over in the States, we say, walking a mile in somebody else's shoes.
mm,
It doesn't work. I can give you a pair of my shoes. You can walk as far as you want in them. All you're ever going to understand is what they feel like for you. You have no idea what they feel like for me, how they rub at the heel, the pinch of a toe. You have no sense of the relief that I have when I take them off at the end of the day. But you understand what it's like for you, and then you problem solve from that perspective, and you'll say, "No, they rub at the back. What you need to do is put some plasters on your heel. You'll be fine."
hmm.
It doesn't work.
Doesn't
Very
work.
often we use the phrase, when somebody is kind of telling us what a terrible time they're having. We say, "I understand." We say it because we
Mm,
think it sounds nice.
mm,
I've broken up with Peter. I understand. I've been laid off. I've been made redundant. I understand. My mother-in-law really, she's struggling. She's not very well at the minute. Oh, I understand. No, you don't.
right.
You don't, and you can't possibly understand. All you're doing is thinking, what would I feel like if I was in those circumstances?
Hmm,
And that's very, very different. So you kind of think, well, what on earth should I say then? Because I say that because it sounds nice. It sounds like I'm trying to show empathy. But actually, the best thing you can say is, oh, do you know what? I can't even begin to understand
Hmm.
what that's like for you. Tell me about it. And then once they tell you about it, then actually, do you know what? You start to understand. But very often we just don't. We don't listen. We listen to half of what they're going to say, and we're desperate to jump in and give them the benefit of our wisdom and tell them what we would do in those circumstances. You were
Mm.
dead right before when you were talking about listening. Very often, all we listen for is a gap in the conversation. A gap in the conversation because the conversation rules say there's a gap in the conversation. Now I jump in. It's my turn.
Right.
So it's my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn. So you're desperately waiting for a gap. Somebody says something that you disagree with in a business meeting. At that point, you completely stop listening. All you're waiting for is a gap in the conversation so
Mm.
you can
Mm.
say, I'm really sorry, but I don't agree with that. We should be listening to understand. And we very, very rarely listen to understand. We listen for that gap in the conversation because we want it to be our turn. And when somebody is telling you about their holidays, you're desperate to jump in because your holidays were better. You went on holiday for longer. Somebody telling a joke and you sat there, you're hardly listening because you've got a joke and it's better than that one. And that's just what we do. But yeah, we should be listening to understand, and if we do that, we get more information, and that makes us more influential. I go talking to businesses now, and I'm very often asked, what is the one thing that I can do? What's the one thing I can do to make myself a better leader, to make myself
Mm.
more influential? And my answer to them is absolutely unequivocal. You want to become a better leader, you want to become more persuasive, a better negotiator, become a better listener.
Mm. Hey, Joey Pinz here. Want to take your podcast experience to the next level? I'm excited to invite you to become a YouTube member. It's the absolute best way to support the channel and enhance your connection. Join our amazing community and unlock the incredible perks, custom loyalty badges, exclusive emojis, and priority comment replies. Your voice will always stand out. Be the first to watch new videos with early access, receive special membership shoutouts, and get exclusive behind-the-scenes photos and updates. Dive into content available only to our members, special videos, deep dives, and insider perspectives. Engage directly with me. Suggest podcast topics you want to hear, and even get personalized video shoutouts. Hit the join button right now and become part of something special. Let's build this amazing community together. I can't wait to welcome you as a new member. Join the Joey Pinz family today. Nigel, are there certain scenarios in negotiation that are less difficult than others?
Yeah, it probably seems very strange. There's a couple of things that kill negotiations. One of them is ego,
Mm.
and the other one is emotion. Emotions kill negotiations.
Ah.
We when we're emotional, we behave very badly, and we make terrible decisions. So actually, the easiest negotiations are those that don't involve any emotions. So a failed bank robbery. You would think, four guys go into a bank with stockings over their head and sawn off shotguns. They've got 30 hostages in there. You'd think, oh, grief, that's a tough job. Actually, if I'd got the choice of that or a domestic incident, man and wife, and he's not even got a gun, he's just got household items. You give me the bank robbery any day of the week
Really?
because that is not where the risk is. The risk is in this emotionally driven scenario where husband and wife are going at each other like cat and dog because that emotion's involved and people aren't thinking straight. Failed bank robbery, that's easy. There's no emotion. It's just just a matter of fact conversation. Look, you didn't intend this to happen today. You didn't intend to hold these people hostage,
Mm.
and eventually you're going to have to come out.
All right.
So let's talk about how we get you out safely. There's no emotion involved with it. It's actually pretty straightforward. So actually, sometimes the incidents that you think would be really dangerous are actually they're not, because there's no emotion involved. But you throw a little bit of emotion into a negotiation, and it can become very difficult. That's why it just quite in a simple term, with my own family, it's so much easier for me to sit down when my kids were younger and do maths homework with one of their friends. That was
Hmm.
very easy. Do maths homework with one of mine, and we'd end up falling out within minutes, because you've got that emotional link,
Right.
and that complicates matters and makes things so much more difficult.
Talk to me more about the training, Nige. I mean, it seems to me the majority of the training is trying to remove emotions and encourage listening.
Yeah, so training is really interesting. So it's there's a series of courses at different levels of negotiation that people will go on, but they're all very similar in the sense that you've got a classroom learning element to it, where you actually learn the structure, you learn the skills, you learn what it is that you need to do.
Mm,
Um, but the reason that hostage negotiators are actually so calm when they deploy, um, and always seem so kind of relaxed, is that because a large amount of the training they do is scenario based. You can call it role plays if you want. They certainly
mm,
weren't role plays, simulations. Some of the toughest negotiations that I was ever involved in were not live negotiations. They
hmm.
were negotiations that we did in training. We used to train against hostage negotiators. They
Whoa.
were role playing. So they knew what you were going to do. They knew how you were going to do it. They could shut you down. They could make life really difficult for you. They could really ramp up the pressure. I've had people killed over the phone. People had fingers cut off over the phone in training scenarios. And it felt real and it hurt.
Mm, mm,
But that
mm.
really prepared me for when I deployed operationally. So a huge part of what negotiators do are these kind of simulations. So when you go to an incident, you've got a man waving a gun around, firing shots in the air or whatever it is. You actually you don't fret. You just stay nice and calm. You've been there before. You know what it feels like. You've experienced it before, and that's why when we turn up at an incident and everybody's running around with their hair on fire, everybody's really worried about what's going on, and we walk in like that calm, informed professional that's going to sort this mess out. And that is infectious. We always used to
Mm,
say, when you turn up at an incident, be worth imitating.
hmm.
Because if you come in and say, okay, I mean, I very often used to walk in, and the first thing I would do would walk up to the scene commander and I'd just say, how are you doing, boss?
Hmm.
And have a conversation with them. And I'd say, I'll tell you what, let me get up there. I'll go and have a chat. I'll come back down in an hour and I'll give you an update. Just
Hmm.
go and get yourself a brew. That is infectious. People notice that and people react to that. If I walked in and the first thing I said was, oh, grief, please tell me there's no suicide note, that starts a chain
Right. The
off
panic.
in a
Yeah.
completely separate direction, which then impacts everybody. Do you know what? The negotiator came in and he looked rocked. This isn't going to go well, is it? So be worth imitating. When you go into a tough conversation, that's all a negotiation is a tough conversation. You go
Mm,
into these tough conversations, be worth imitating.
hmm.
Be that informed professional that's going to go in there and is just going to sort this out. Even when underneath the surface,
Hmm.
you're just thinking, grief, I think we're going to be all right, but I really don't know.
Hmm. Kind of like that duck swimming. It looks so calm, but under the water, the feet are, flapping
Yeah,
feverishly.
absolutely. You know, people are very used to. You used to walk in and people would say, "You look very relaxed,
Hmm.
given what you're walking into," and you say, "Yeah, do you know what? I'm good. Let's crack on. Let's get on with it."
Hmm.
But actually, I'm having the same physiological reaction that everybody else is. My heart is thumping out of my chest.
Hmm.
My hands are shaking because I've lost that kind of fine motor sense.
Hmm.
I'm still getting butterflies. My stomach's churning because you can't fight your own biology. that is your body doing what your body's actually supposed to do. And
Hmm.
actually, it makes you perform better as long as you don't let it overcome you. So I'm still getting the same physiological reaction as anybody else, but you've just got to be able to control it. And it doesn't matter what the scenario is. I was talking at a huge conference in Birmingham, England, a couple of months ago, and I was up on stage for an hour, came back down, and somebody said, "What do you think?" And I said, "It went. Not only did it go really well, I loved it. I enjoyed it."
Hmm.
And I was dead relaxed. And if you'd said to me, Nigel, what was your heart rate like when you're up there? I'd be going, do you know what? I was ticking along at 60, 70 beats a minute. I was actually wearing a tracker. And when I got back home and checked it, I was up to 130 when I was on stage.
Wow.
You can't fight your own biology. It's going to
Yeah.
do what it's going to do, but you've got to keep control of it. You can't allow it to overcome you.
We see in movies, Nige, the representation of the of the negotiator. What movies get it right, and which ones have got it wrong that you can think of?
Oh, well,
Hollywood
so
sensationalizes, obviously.
it does, and it's got to kind of make it
Sure.
exciting
Yes.
and whatnot. I mean, the classic is the negotiator.
Ah.
So it's Samuel L. Jackson, Kevin
Yes.
Spacey,
That's
um,
right.
and that's kind of it's really interesting. I love watching stuff like that. I really do enjoy it because some of it they've obviously got some advice behind the scenes, and some of it
Mm.
is quite good, quite accurate. But some of the stuff, I mean, the classic line is that in that one is, we never say no to the hostage taker. We always say no to the hostage taker. Great. Most of the ones that I went to didn't ask for a helicopter, but they wanted a fully fueled car to the front door. They weren't going to get a
Uh,
pedal cycle off me. They weren't going to get a bike. So yeah,
Mario
so
Batali.
yeah, so some of it is just nonsense. I must admit, I was on a plane last year and Ransom with Mel Gibson
Ah, yes.
was,
Forgot
was
about
was
that.
on, and that is just it's a kidnapping, and he's just a really badly behaved parent. That this
Right.
negotiator is actually trying to get on side and get him to cooperate in order to get his child back. And you know what? I really enjoyed that. And there's a lot of
Huh.
reality in that, in terms of sometimes our biggest difficulty when dealing with that kind of incident is managing the parents, the person that the demand's being made of, rather than the actual kidnappers themselves. So dead interesting. If anybody does want to watch something that is actually quite realistic, Waco, which I think was a Netflix series, if I remember correctly. Waco, after the Waco siege with David Koresh.
Oh, yes,
Um,
yes.
Now that is actually quite
That's
accurate.
right.
They had Gary Nosner, I think his name is, who was the negotiator who was on that incident, and he was actually sort of behind the cameras, advising them on content, and that is actually quite accurate. It's
Mm.
if you want to watch something that is actually accurate, that's good. But yeah,
Hmm.
I just like watching trashy programs. If there's no helicopters exploding or stuff like that, I struggle to stay awake. Um,
And as far as negotiator, I heard you talk about Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference, probably the
yeah,
most popular, and yeah, I mean, he has really shined a light on negotiation.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love watching Chris's stuff. Always very interesting. I mean, the book Never Split the Difference, great book.
Yeah.
We I think all of us, and there are a number of us kind of globally who do this, and we all talk from the same playbook. Essentially, it's an international system that we use, but we all bring something different to it. And yeah, he is very very listenable.
Hmm.
And yes, I would highly recommend the book.
I know you're working on one too. Good luck. So what are you allowed? You mentioned, working with your kids, your wife, I believe her name is Amanda. What are you allowed to discuss? Well, I should say, what are you allowed? What do you want to discuss? I thought I heard you say that you don't take any of your work home, but are you legally able to speak about some of these interactions?
Yeah, so in terms of the negotiation that I was involved in, there was nothing secret about them.
I see.
So there'd be absolutely no problem coming home, offloading to Amanda or
Mm,
anybody else. I never did that. I didn't want to burden her with the sort of stuff that I was
Mm.
involved in. She was scared enough as it was with me going out at
Right.
3 o'clock in the morning. All she was
Right.
ever bothered about was the speed that the police car drove at to get me to these incidents. She'd say to
Mm.
me, she'd say, "Make sure you tell them not to drive fast." And I'm going, what do you think the blue lights and the sirens are for? The whole idea is that we get there fast. She wasn't bothered about the fact there was somebody waving a gun around. It was the fact that I was in a car doing in excess of 100 miles an hour. So I tended not to tell her about stuff. But a big thing for me was kind of the way the support I had around me. There was no questions asked about what did you do and stuff like that. It was more about helping me stay grounded.
Mm.
So I would deal with a 10-hour armed incident, and I'd be getting driven home in the traffic car, and Amanda would ring me up, and she'd say, "Have you finished that job yet?" And I'd say, "Yeah, I'm on my way back now." And she'd say, "Oh, brilliant! Can you get a 4 pint of semi-skimmed milk on the way back? We're short." So it's just that kind of being
Good.
grounded. All right,
Good.
you're not the
Good.
big I am.
Right.
You're the father of 2 kids,
That's
and we're short of milk. So that really helped. But yeah, there was no secret stuff about that. I could share it, but very often I chose not to. It's quite strange, really. Nobody really knows what we as negotiators go through,
right.
other than us as negotiators. It'll probably come as no surprise to you that the actual organisation, the police, weren't particularly good at looking after the negotiators.
Ah.
The support came from within the cadre. It came
Mm.
from within that group of people who had got that shared experience, who knew what each other were going through and what we were dealing with, and we just used to support each other. And that was kind of how it worked. So yeah, no legal requirement not to sort of tell Amanda what was going on, but I didn't want to burden her with it.
Mm. Your approach, Nige, just to general problem solving in your life. You describe negotiation as more art than science, but there's definitely that foundation of science that's necessary. I know you're an outdoorsman, mountain climbing, etc. So and you like music and sports. So I see a lot of art in your life. But when you generally problem solve, are you getting that foundation? About what percentage is science versus art, roughly?
I think if I was to be absolutely honest, I think I very often shoot from the hip.
All
And,
gut.
and I think I do. I react instinctively. I like to think that a lot of the times I get it right. Sometimes I get it badly wrong, but I'd
Mm.
like to think most of the time I get it right. Um, but yeah, I think I'm more heart than head.
Hmm.
Um, but um, I'm, as you can imagine from the background that I've got, relaxed under pressure.
Right.
I will work under pressure. It doesn't bother me. So whilst the decisions I make sometimes may be instinctive. They're never actually emotionally driven. It's just, you know what? Sometimes there's no right and no wrong. Very often, the only bad decision is indecision. As long as at the time
Mm.
you're thinking, I'm making the best decision that I can based on all of the facts that are available to me. Um, and it's actually quite easy to do that in quite a relaxed way. So when the wheel comes off, I'm very often quite relaxed.
Mm.
It's afterwards when you start thinking about what could have been, and if you'd got it wrong, that you start to worry. So I mean, a classic example, and I very often use it when I'm speaking to people in keynotes, is I was negotiating at an incident. Guy barricaded in a house. He'd got hostages in there. He'd said to me, "Nobody's going to get hurt as long as nobody comes in and nobody leaves." And during the negotiation, this 4-year-old child came to the back door and opened the back door, and he looked at me. He said, "Shall I run or shall I go back in?"
Wow.
I was like, "What do you do? Do you tell him to run? It increases the risk to the rest of the hostages, but you've got one out safely. Do you
Right.
tell him to get back in and run the risk that in 20 minutes time something happens and he gets shot and you could have saved him? Do you just stand there with analysis paralysis and
Mm.
and not know what to do?" So yeah, in those circumstances, you have to make a call. Like I said, the only bad decision is indecision, as
Right.
long as you're doing it. with, they're making the best decision that you can. And you've got a rationale. Very often, it's not the decision you make; it's your rationale
Mm.
based on what you know at the time, not based on what somebody knows the following morning when there's a lot more information come out. But what did you know at the time, and did you make the best decision based on that information? And I
Yeah,
told him
no
to
answer.
and I told him to run. I told him to come out.
Okay, good. That's my next question. Yeah,
It
because
was
no
it was a
answer is still an answer.
yeah, absolutely. You've just got to look at the facts available to you and go, what is? Sometimes it can be as simple as, what is the least worst option?
Right. What's the worst thing that could happen?
Yeah, what is the least worst option? If I do this now, if I tell him to run, what's going to happen? If I tell him to go back in, what's going to happen?
Mm.
And my call was, get him to come out. My job is to save a life there and then. I had the opportunity to save the life of this kid. I was going to get him out. And my job as a negotiator is to develop a relationship with that guy and get everybody else out safe.
Mm.
So my mind was, 1 down, 3 to go. But then you've got to get in there and you've got to work hard, because that guy came back to the window and was pretty upset that he'd lost one of his hostages.
Are the conversations recorded and then later scrutinized and reviewed?
So at the time when I started negotiating, we just had an audio recorder, and they weren't reviewed. You kept hold of your own recordings, and the only time they really got reviewed was if there was an adverse incident. So if somebody
Mm.
got killed or badly hurt, then you would have to produce that recording. But very often, we would give our recordings to other negotiators. So I would do a negotiation, and I'd think, you know what? Okay, I got him out, but I don't think that was a good negotiation. And I would give my recording to another experienced negotiator and say, just listen to that, and especially the first 10 minutes, and see what you think, and give me some feedback. So that was how we started off initially. Towards the end of my service, we were then on body worn videos, which were being stored centrally. So there was more formal record, and it was possible for complaints and discipline, the coroner or whatever, to be able to access that information. It was never really about what the other person was saying. It was more a record of what we were saying. As a matter of fact, the recorders probably wouldn't have picked the other person up. It was about what we had said as police officers. So we'd done everything that we could in order to save that life. What were our actions? So it was more about holding us to account than actually having a record of what the other person was saying. I suspect that by now, I mean, I've been retired for 4 or 5 years now. I'll be very surprised if those conversations are not being streamed from body-worn cameras straight into control rooms. They certainly would be in sieges and terrorist incidents, that they'll be being streamed directly into control rooms. That puts a lot of pressure on you, negotiator, when you're thinking, who's listening to this?
Right. And do they let the hostage person know? Do they have to say, "Hey, we're being recorded"?
No, we wouldn't do.
I see.
I think that I think most people know now that police officers tend to wear body-worn video. It's visible on the outside of their jackets. The only thing that negotiators do, they turn the lights off. So sometimes body-worn video flashes and beeps. We turn those off because it's a distraction, but it's still visible. I know that some negotiators concerned that whoever they're negotiating with says, take the camera off. I'm not talking to you while you've got a camera, so they'll lose that. Some of them do carry an audio backup device just in case.
I think it's wonderful, Nigel, how you give the recordings up. I work with a lot of small businesses, and I had a small business myself. I still do. And then when I get asked for advice, I always say I'm not smart enough to give advice, but here's a situation that was similar to the one you're describing. Here's how I handle it, and here's what I did right, and here's what I did wrong. I think that's different from giving advice.
Yeah.
Has there been anything in the last month or so, Nigel, that you have changed your mind on?
Oh, dear me. You've probably picked a bad month.
Why?
Because I've just spent a month on my holidays in France and
That's right.
Spain, and I've my feet up
Good
on
for
the
you.
beach doing very little.
You didn't
But
have time to
yeah,
reflect?
oh well, yeah, do a lot of reflecting, but mainly reading books and eating ice cream. Um,
Nice.
but no, I think that yeah, certainly with regard to kind of professionally and what I do now, um,
Mm,
I've had a very different kind of take on how I actually go out trying to to, to create work myself.
mm,
So in the past, I've kind of relied very much on speaker agencies to get that kind of work for me. Whereas now I tend to do a lot of the prospecting myself and kind of change that whole process round and started to get more front and centre in developing the business. But for me, I think I probably spend too much time working in the business rather than on the business
mm.
and actually developing things. And yeah, I think I do fall foul of letting things drop into my lap, and I'm trying to be a lot more proactive about stuff like that. So yeah, I think that was kind of what came to me kind of just before the holidays, and yeah, so that's what I've changed.
Hmm. So I started my business in the 90s. I think you were born, you said 69. I'm born 68. So we're the same
Yeah.
age. And so um, I was working way too hard, Nige. And I was, 14, 16-hour days and not paying attention to myself. I was trying to build a business. And next thing I know, I'm at the doctor and she tells me I'm at 340 pounds. So I think that's about 160 uh, kilos. And I had
Mm.
gained all of this weight, terrible amount of weight. I didn't even realize it. I was young, an athlete, but it was horrible. And she says to me, look, if you don't lose this weight, you're not going to see your daughter graduate. My youngest had just been born. So I'm driving home, punching the steering wheel. What have I done? I could do it, everything I want, abuse myself all I want, but I have a family now and I have this daughter. And somehow I brought this beautiful person into the world. I'm going to be around for them. Spent the next 6, 7 months, lost about 120 pounds, which I believe is about 55 kilos, I believe. And
Wow.
and you can't look at it as a finishing line, right? These are
Hmm.
lifelong
Yeah.
changes, right? Because too many people look at it as a finishing line and then go back to what they did. But I dedicated it to myself. And when I tell people this story, they always, what'd you do? What's your secret? And there's no secret. Nige,
Mm.
discipline, right? I believe
Yeah.
focus, willpower, routine. How does discipline play a role in your life?
Yeah, so I mean, certainly as a negotiator, when I was
Mm,
working back in the day, there's a lot of discipline involved. There's a lot of structure involved. Turning up and being the person that you need to be, being the best version of yourself, doesn't happen by chance. It happens because you dedicate yourself to it. You dedicate yourself to personal development. You use the skills that you're gonna deploy as a negotiator in other situations, so it comes naturally because I speak completely differently when I'm negotiating.
mm.
So you practice that, you rehearse that, and you make sure that actually, do you know what? When I get out of that car, when I slam that car door and walk off, I'm actually the best person to deal with that individual. And like I say, that doesn't happen by chance, and that kind of it cascades, a kind of across your life. Don't kind of be a victim of circumstance. Get out there and actually be a positive force. Do what you need to do to kind of to improve the skill base that you've got to make yourself more competent and more confident, and to be able to have that kind of influence and impact on those people around you. It doesn't happen by chance.
Mm.
So yeah, I still I work hard to become a better speaker, and to be able to pass these skills on to other people, and to help them to be able to become better communicators and more influential. So yeah, I find it a challenge as somebody who's effectively now sort of self-employed and running my own business.
Mm,
The discipline of when do I sit down, when do I work, when do I
mm.
rest, and very often I'll find myself 11:30 at night, midnight, sat in front of the computer, still tapping away, having done 4 to 5 hours, no idea what time it is, and then I go and get in bed, and I've still got PowerPoints kind of flashing in front of my eyes
Hmm.
and stuff like that. So I have not got it right. But I mean, I've got two lads, 23 and 20, and for me, it's about being an example and setting the tone for them, and
Hmm.
helping them become happy and independent individuals who can contribute to society. And that's where kind of business aside, that's where my main focus is, and it's where my discipline is.
Hmm.
Somebody said to me once, how do you know when you've succeeded as a parent? Um, and for me, it's when my kids are better than me.
Hmm.
And kind of that's what my focus is. That's what kind of I believe in. That's why I think as parents we need to be kind of self-disciplined, because kids will watch us and they will turn into miniature versions of us, and then in the case of my two, bigger versions than me. And you mentioned the book before. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm kind of I'm halfway through the Hostage Negotiator's Guide to Parenting.
Hmm.
And trying to articulate to parents, carers, anybody who works with kids, really, how the skills
Hmm.
that we use as hostage negotiators can actually be used to 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 help your kids to turn into those, like I say, happy, stable,
Hmm.
and positive individuals that they need to be. So yeah, I'm still working on that. That's something else I need to be more disciplined about, Joey. It's kind of it's taking longer than I ever intended.
Oh, it's quite an endeavor. Yeah, it seems to me, Nige, that you described that one kind of come to Jesus moment, similar to that I had in the doctor, where you were, eating the half-eaten sandwiches in the factory. It's like, where, I'm at a certain age. What's happening here? And it's at that point where you said, okay, I'm going to go to night school. I'm going to, think about T.J. Hooker and go into policing when you turn 21. But you kind of needed that kind of moment to kind of make that turn. Do I have that
Mm.
right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that you know um, we never develop in straight lines.
Right.
It's always a bit of a squiggly line.
Mm,
Where I keep saying to my kids, where you start is never where you finish.
right.
Just know where you are now, know where you want to get to, have a rough idea of how you want to get there, and keep your options open.
Mm,
But don't expect development in any way to be linear. There's ups and downs and twists and turns. It's all part of the rich tapestry of life. But yeah, it worked out in the long term. If you had said to that 16-year-old kid working in that bus building factory that when he retired 35 years later, that he would be a detective inspector in counter-terrorism policing and a hostage negotiator, he would have laughed you out of town. He would have laughed in your face. Um, so yeah, where you start is never where
mm.
you end up.
What motivates you, Nige?
Oh, I'm motivated by doing the things that I enjoy and I think add value.
Hmm.
So the business I work in now, I do that because I think it adds value to companies, and to
Mm.
businesses, and helps them to become better. I'm a governor at our local high school, the chair of governors at a local high school, um, and I do that because, again, it's something that I think it's important. It's not just about paying back the school for the good work they did with my kids. It's about helping them to become better as well. So yeah, I do things that I think add value,
Mm.
and that's where I get my kick. That's the sort of stuff that I enjoy. I hate the mundane. I hate the meaningless. There's some bits of life that I find difficult. um, but yeah, for me, it's about adding value and just making, just it sounds twee, but making the world a better place. How
Mm.
much better would this place be if we all listened just that little bit more? You know,
So,
um,
Want to show your love for discipline, inspiration, and the Joey Pinz podcast? Now's your chance. Introducing the brand new Joey Pinz merch store, where style meets discipline. Choose from premium apparel, cozy hoodies, stylish hats, durable bags, and your new favorite coffee mug, all featuring the iconic Joey Pinz logo. Perfect for podcast fans, discipline enthusiasts, or as unique gifts for friends and family. Every purchase supports the Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations podcast, helping us continue to inspire greatness and promote positive change. Visit joeypins.com/store today and wear your discipline proudly. Joey Pinz merch. Wear it, share it, and live it. What I hear you saying is impact, legacy, community. These are your motivators. So given that motivation, I know you talked about success earlier as a parent, but how do you measure success you personally given those motivators?
Oh, grief. I really don't know. I've never really considered for me what success actually looks like in that sense. You know, for me,
Impact.
yeah, it's about impact. I suppose it's about reach. It's about helping as many people that I can
Mm,
to become more influential, to become better communicators, to become better people. And I think that we've all got a responsibility. We've all got a kind of a role to do that, particularly with the younger generation, which is where the school governor stuff comes in, and where I've worked in kind of youth in the past, just to try and pass that on and pass that learning on, and who knows, oh grief, what when I become successful, or when will I be successful? I have no idea,
mm.
and I've got to be honest, I've never even considered that. Wow.
Well, given your motivation, you could see how success you're motivated, it seems to me, by impact, legacy, community. So I would think that you would measure success based on those motivators. Just
Mm.
that's why I kind of asked that first.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, I suppose you when you invest time into stuff, you just want to see improvement. You want to
Mm,
see that benefit for other people. And I suppose if you're seeing that, I suppose that's a measure of success in itself. When I see kids coming out of school with good results, I suppose that's an indication that
mm,
as a school
mm.
and the school governors we're doing a good job, and we're successful.
Well, Nigel, I thank you so much for your time. I love learning about you. I love what you're doing, and absolute delight. Anybody watching or listening, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so the best way is through my website, which is www.nigeltaberner.com. Or you can find me on LinkedIn. I spend most of my life seemingly cruising around LinkedIn. It'd be great to connect to people and to continue the conversation. But Joey, I've had a great time chatting with you. Thank you so much for having me on. And yeah, I hope that it's been a useful experience for your listeners.
It's been great, Nigel Taberner, Taberner.com. Like you said, you're on LinkedIn. Did I spell that right?
That's correct.
Yes,
That is
LinkedIn,
correct.
Instagram, and also on YouTube. Next time I'm in the general Manchester area, perhaps we'll get a cup of tea.
That would be great. You could have a proper cup of English tea.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Nigel, you be well, my friend. Cheers.
And you take care. Bye bye.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. podcast information. The video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Disciplined Conversations.